In the deep stillness of a Hanoverian night, when the palace corridors were hushed and candle flames trembled against velvet drapes, a child was born who would one day alter the course of British history, though no one in that room could have imagined it. On the 28th of May, 1660, within the walls of Hanover Palace, George Louis was born to Ernest Augustus and Sophia of the Palatinate. He was not born an Englishman, nor raised with thoughts of Britain. He was born a German prince of a modest European state, shaped by circumstance rather than destiny. The newborn lay in his cradle beneath flickering candlelight as nobles observed quietly. The midwife bowed, tradition was honored, and the infant's small hand tightened firmly around the cloth beside him. A fleeting gesture that seemed to echo a future life defined by control and endurance. No celebration of prophecy filled the room. No one spoke of crowns beyond Hanover. Yet history, indifferent to intention, had already begun its slow approach. George's childhood unfolded within palace walls where warmth was scarce and discipline ruled all. The nursery was not a place of laughter, but of instruction. Tutors replaced affection, and expectation overshadowed tenderness. Maps of Europe adorned the walls, swords gleamed above polished stone floors, and the young prince learned early how to walk with purpose, how to stand in silence, and how to submit to authority. He was taught not how to express emotion, but how to suppress it. From his earliest years, George was shaped by duty rather than love. Every movement was corrected, every mistake noted. He was not encouraged to dream, only to prepare. Childhood, for George, was not a sanctuary, it was a training ground. Presiding over this rigid upbringing was the towering presence of his father, Ernest Augustus, Elector of Hanover. In chambers lined with military banners and symbols of command, George stood before a man who believed power was preserved only through obedience. As George I settled into his reign, it became increasingly clear that Britain was entering a new political age, one not defined by royal command, but by quiet delegation. In cabinet meetings filled with towering stacks of documents and murmured debate, the king often sat still, listening through translators, approving decisions without argument or intervention. Authority no longer thundered from the throne. It drifted through the hands of ministers. Without declaring it, Britain had given birth to something new, the office of the Prime Minister. A king still ruled in name, but governance now belonged to men who understood Parliament better than the Crown ever could. Yet the throne George occupied was far from secure. Across the Scottish Highlands, ancient loyalties stirred. The Jacobites, supporters of the exiled Stuart line, rallied beneath mist-covered hills, driven by blood, memory, and resentment. To them, George was not a rightful king, but a foreign usurper placed on Britain's throne by law rather than lineage. Their cause was fueled by nostalgia for a past Britain, Catholic and Stuart, where crowns passed by birth alone. Rebellion gathered momentum, and the fragile peace of the new Hanoverian rule trembled. When the Jacobite uprising erupted, Britain faced its first true test under George I. Smoke filled battlefields as steel met steel. Government forces advanced with discipline and resolve, crushing the rebellion before it could spread. The victory was decisive. The Stuart threat was pushed back into shadow, and George's crown survived its first challenge. Though he had not personally led the charge, the outcome strengthened his legitimacy. The law had prevailed over blood. The throne endured. Despite survival, affection remained elusive. In London's crowded streets, satirical pamphlets circulated freely, mocking the foreign king with exaggerated features and cruel humor. Caricatures depicted him as distant, uninterested, more German than British. Coffee. By the time George's reign drew toward its final chapters, something profound had already taken place. Quietly, steadily, and without declaration, Britain had changed. The monarchy still existed, the crown still shone, and the throne still stood at the heart of the kingdom. Yet power no longer resided where it once had. In voting halls filled with debate and procedure, authority rested not in royal command but in collective decision. Ministers governed, Parliament ruled, and without ever intending it, George I had presided over the birth of modern monarchy. It was not forged by revolution, nor sealed by bloodshed. No banners were raised, No palaces stormed. Instead, the transformation unfolded through routine, through meetings, signatures, silences. George I did not seize power, he stepped away from it. And in that retreat, Britain moved forward. Today, his body rests in Westminster Abbey, surrounded by kings whose language he barely spoke and whose traditions he never fully shared. Visitors pass his tomb in candlelit stillness, reading a name that once commanded an empire yet inspired little affection. He lies among monarchs who ruled through presence, while his own rule was defined by absence. Stone preserves him now, though memory struggles to decide how to judge him. Historians continue to debate his reign. Was George I weak? Or was he wise? Was his withdrawal from active rule a failure of leadership, or an instinctive understanding of a changing age? Some see a man overwhelmed by culture, language, and distance. Others see a ruler who, by stepping aside, allowed Britain to mature politically. History offers no single verdict, only perspective shaped by time. Popular memory has rarely been kind. Satirical engravings once filled London streets, mocking the king's foreign accent, his heavy features, his silence. Crowds laughed at caricatures that reduced a monarch to an object of ridicule. Charisma, after all, has always shaped reputation, and George I. Yet beneath the mockery lay an uncomfortable truth. While George I lacked warmth, Britain gained stability. Parliament functioned. Laws passed. Government endured. There were no civil wars, no royal overreach, no catastrophic collapse of authority. In an era when Europe was frequently torn apart by ambition and absolutism, Britain remained steady. That steadiness was his quiet gift. George I existed between two worlds, never fully belonging to either. Britain was his crown, Hanover his home. In England, he was a foreign ruler bound by constitutional limits. In Germany, he was a traditional prince with direct authority. His identity remained divided, his loyalties balanced. His life stretched across borders that no single crown could erase. He walked away symbolically from both lands, never entirely at peace in either. What followed his reign was not dramatic upheaval, but a quiet revolution. Authority dissolved from crown into parliament, not through force but through habit. Power shifted so gradually that few noticed its final destination. No sword was drawn, yet history changed forever. The British monarchy transformed from ruler to symbol, from authority to continuity. George I spoke little, but his silence carried consequence. In council rooms filled with waiting ministers,